do this literally every time where I just like leave my keys on my belt. It's because that's where they belong. That's where they're meant to be. Somebody's leaving. Garage is opening. That's really loud. Oh my gosh. Okay. Nice. Sweet. All right. I was getting ready to go rock climbing with my super awesome amazing best friend Chelsea. I have a lot of really best friends. Like a lot. Anyway, so I was getting ready to go rock climbing. She's still leaving work, so it's going to be about an hour, and I was like, this is perfect time for me to record a podcast episode. So that's what we're going to do. Also, this podcast episode is brought to you by Nick the Chick. Spread the love. Nick sent me a hat and a super, super, super thoughtful. Anyway, I really appreciate what Nick and I first met at Girls in Wonderland. We didn't really talk much. She was with her girlfriend. They seemed like they were having a good time. But anyway, brought to you by Nick the Chick. Spread the love. Anyway, okay, we're going to get going. Sorry, Patreon people. You always get this weird intro that makes absolutely no sense at all. But, like, here we are. So, welcome to my whole life. This is it. This is me trying to get organized. I also, side note, another one, I think I need glasses. That's not a bad thing. But I think my eyesight is going. Not like I'm going to be blind. But, like, I can't, like, things are blurry that weren't blurry before. You know what I'm saying? Anyway. All in good time. All right, here we go. Maybe the hat should be backwards. No. It's not. Okay, here we go. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Education 101. My name is Kate. I am your host. Hostess. I don't particularly care, but thanks for listening to another episode. As always, this podcast episode is brought to you by my Patreon subscribers. Thank you guys. I really appreciate your support, your help, your thoughts, your feedback. If you're looking for a way to support me, Patreon is the place to do that, or feel free to purchase some merch. I need some new designs. Those are forthcoming as I start designing more tattoos and things. Probably incorporate those into some t-shirt designs so it's more artsy and less just like I slapped some text on on a t-shirt. Speaking of tattooing, if you would like a tattoo, I'm new, but I've been told that my line work is pretty good. So if you want a tattoo, you can shoot me a message on Instagram, swing by the studio, we'll get you booked. It's a new thing for me. Life update. I quit my job as general manager of this company that I was working at, and here we are, tattooing, booking a lot of video gigs too. I've got a couple weddings on the radar, so I think we're gonna be okay. I'm really excited. I'm really terrified. Change terrifies me, but I do think that things are gonna work out the way they're supposed to work out. I've always had that attitude. So looking forward to the next few months of life, and certainly appreciate all of you listening, all of you that are sending me messages. Today's episode actually stems from an Instagram message that I had with, what's her name? Oh man, let me look it up because I'm going to forget. I already did forget. That's okay though. Let me see. Give me just a second. Megan, who I need to get back to. I'm trying to, sorry for the long pause. This podcast episode stems from a conversation that I had with Megan from Instagram, who got me thinking about a lot of different things. But the thing that really kind of stuck out to me from our just very, very brief back and forth, Megan had some questions about relationships with family that got me thinking about a lot of things. And I've had some recent developments just literally within the last week that have really, really been very incredible. I'll share more about those in an upcoming podcast episode, but I've been thinking a little bit about where my family was when I first came out, how they progressed when I was dating Kenna, first girlfriend, and then their role or lack of role in while I was going to therapy. And then after I had resolved a lot of things within myself after therapy, it's interesting to see the then versus now with my parents specifically. My siblings, I think I stated this in a previous episode. My siblings, I've never felt anything but love. I think I stated once with my younger sister, there was, she had written me a letter that was kind of hurtful. But I don't think she ever intended it to be hurtful. So, that's just kind of, I think the space that I was in was very, vulnerable to emotional pain at the time. And that was when I first came out. But my siblings, my sisters-in-law have been fabulous. My older brother and his wife specifically have been, since day one, have been just incredible. I actually lived in their house for a couple months, and we had some really good conversations that made me feel very seen and made me realize that there are a lot of people who also have questions. There's a lot of stuff that they don't understand. There's a lot of stuff that we don't understand generally. I'm speaking more religiously, I think, at this point. There's a lot of stuff within Christianity, specifically within the LDS faith, that a lot of people have questions about. And not just, the queer members of the community. I think the heterosexual members also have a lot of questions. And I think the more they have experiences with LGBTQ members of the faith, the more they're going to think about things. I don't know. I feel like people are more compassionate than what we generally give them credit for. And maybe that's just me. I have a lot of friends who have accused me, for lack of a better term, have accused me of being naive. And granted, my life experience I have been very, very, very fortunate in being born into the family that I was born into, to the parents that I have. My siblings, like I said, have been fabulous. Life's had its ups and downs, but for the most part, I've always had what I needed, and that's been enough, That doesn't mean that I don't believe that there are injustices That doesn't mean that I don't recognize that there are injustices in the world, or that there are horrible, evil people in the world. I think there are a lot of people who are capable of awful, awful things. I do. I think that. I don't know if I believe that humans are naturally good. I don't think we're born good. Have you ever met a baby or a 1-year-old? Please. The most selfish, entitled, me kinds of creatures on the whole planet. But they kind of have to be out of necessity. But, if you just let babies keep having the same kinds of, eventually we start correcting babies and saying, no, you need to share. We start teaching them positive values and virtues, right? So I don't know that I believe that people are just naturally great people, but I do tend to give people the benefit of the doubt initially. I'm not very skeptical of humans. I'm cautious, but I also like to believe that people are good. So how did we get on this tangent? I don't even remember how we got here, but I do think that most people in the church, especially the younger generations, are trying more to see the world or put themselves into the place of LGBTQ members of the church. I do think they're trying. I don't think there's as much homophobia or negative attitudes towards queer people in general in younger generations. I don't think so. I'd have to look up some research, but anyway, continuing on with this topic, my family, my parents have been the most complicated to not deal with. It has been hardest for my parents to come around to where I am at with my sexuality. And I think there is a reason for that. And something that I didn't realize until therapy that I wish I would have understood before is that parents, I think, naturally just have a vision of what their children's future looks like. I think parents think about, where their kids are going to be in 10, 15, 20 years. My parents are grandparents. I've got 6 nephews. They raised their kids and now their kids are raising kids. And I'm sure my future for them looked like what it's like for my brothers right now. Marriage, kids, raising a family, being a stay-at-home mom. Like I'm sure that it was similar. The plan that my parents had for my future was probably very similar to that of my brothers. And what I didn't realize is that they needed time to grieve that future just as much as I did. Don't think that just coming out suddenly I was like, all right, great, now I can just marry a woman and we can have a kid. That's going to be really expensive, but that came in phases too. The first step was me finally being confident in, hey, I'm attracted to women and I'm probably just going to date women. I hadn't even thought at that point about I could marry a woman. That's a possible reality. I could actually raise a family with a woman. That was something that all hit me in therapy that I had never even considered it as a reality before. Never. Not even when I was dating women. It took a long time. So there was a part of me that had to grieve also the future that I always thought that I was going to have. I didn't expect my parents to have to deal with the same emotions in that regard. And I haven't talked to them about this, so I don't know if that's actually reality, but I do think that it's something that they were going through. I think there's this huge expectation, largely from the LGBTQ community, and I know that it should be easy. It should be easy when people come out for their parents, their siblings, their loved ones. Should be easy for them to just act like nothing's changed and they don't even skip a beat and everything's just fine and dandy and we love you for you and end of story. I know that we hope that it would be that easy, but the reality of it is that it's not. People have emotions and things that they have to process. And I think that there is a huge lack of compassion, oftentimes from the part of people coming out. And I don't want people to jump and be like, oh, well, we shouldn't have to, people should just accept us the way that we are. Yes, I agree. Okay. Yes, I think that if you come out as gay or bisexual or lesbian or trans or whatever, people ultimately should be like, hey, if this is who you are, this is who you are, right? I'm saying that it's not that easy, and I think it would go a long way for those of us who are coming out to practice the same compassion that we expect from other people. I said a lot of very hurtful things, and I thought a lot of very hurtful things about my parents, to my mom. I said some things to my mom that I really regret. And I think that's because I was in a place of emotional distress. I was still in this internal conflict stage, and it was really hard for me to consider other people's feelings. Very difficult. which usually isn't an issue for me. Usually it's very easy for me to think about how is what I'm saying going to affect this person. But I was at a phase in life, especially after I broke up with Kenna, when Ken and I broke up, I was in such a place of hurt and anger towards my family, because that was a large part of the reason our relationship ended. In my head, it was their fault. It was my parents' fault that this relationship with this woman that I really, really loved was over. It was their fault. And rather than practicing patience or compassion or charity or whatever you want to call it, instead of recognizing that my parents were still going through this process of grieving what they thought my life would look like and trying to understand where I was at, rather than recognizing that that's what they were going through, I was just angry and upset. And in my anger, I said a lot of things that I shouldn't have said, things that were not true, things that were hurtful, and it wasn't productive, and it wasn't positive, and it wasn't good. So grief is a very interesting thing, I think. Especially, like, how do you grieve something that isn't even a reality? Like, how can I be sad about something that hasn't even happened yet? But like, that's where I was. I went through that phase, mostly in therapy. I think you should give yourself time to grieve what you thought was going to be the future. There's a part of you, because I guess that's the thing, is like, there's a part of me, there was always a part of me that believed that growing up and marrying a man and having kids and being a stay-at-home mom and a little wifey, that was going to be what the rest of my life looked like. And then you project that out 20 years. Now my kids are grown and they have kids, and I'm a grandma, and like, that was what I thought and hoped for a long time that was going to happen. I really believed that. And it's okay when you realize your sexuality, and when you realize your sexuality as you're on this journey of coming out and figuring out, who you are, it's okay to be sad about the future that you thought you wanted. You should give yourself time and allow yourself time to grieve that. And then to recognize that most of that is still going to be the same. You can still have kids. You can still have grandkids. You can still be the wife or the provider, whatever it is that you want your relationship long-term to look like, you can have that. It took me a long time. I mean, it was a year and a half that I dated Kenna. We broke up. I kind of started dating again like six or 7 months after we broke up. And it wasn't until I talked to another girl who had talked about wanting to get married and have a wife that I was like, wait a minute. A wife? I was like, why have I not considered the fact that I can get married to a woman? I can get married to a woman. I can still get pregnant. If I had a wife, she could get pregnant. We could both be pregnant at the same time. I don't think that's a very good idea, though, if I'm being totally honest. You could adopt. There are so many ways to have a family that's outside of a traditional family, that I had just never considered. Never considered it until after my first relationship with a woman, which I think is just crazy that it took me that long. But like I said, layers. It was just another layer of my coming out. I finally got to a point to where I was like, yeah, I'm gay, and that's fine, and I can still be involved in the church and still love God and still read the scriptures and pray. I can do all of that. And I can marry a woman if it comes to that. It took me a long time to get there. It was just another layer that I was just peeling back off of this whole experience of coming out. So it takes time. Everything about coming out takes time. That's ultimately where these podcast episodes end, is that you have to allow yourself time. And time is valuable, right? Time is valuable. And sometimes you want to rush things. Don't do it. Don't do it until you are ready to do it. Don't come out until you're ready to do it. Don't try and rush over this period of grief that we all eventually have to go through. If you're going to be sad, you want to be sad for a little while, be sad for a little while. It's okay. Sit in those emotions, feel those emotions, recognize that that was something that you wanted, and then work at replacing that with what your new reality is going to be. Because it can be just as beautiful and just as good and just as magnificent as what you thought your future would look like. That's what I tell myself now. Like, yeah, I thought that marrying a dude and having a husband and just being a wife was going to be the best part of my whole life. And there was going to be nothing that could compare to having that. And now I'm at a point where I can be equally as excited about having a wife and having kids and raising a family. And you can still do the picket fence and the dog in the backyard. The only thing that changes is the person that you're building your life with. And if you pick the right person, it can be such a beautiful, beautiful thing. Even if it's not what you thought you wanted. Ah, man. Life is such a beautiful thing. I actually was going through my journal from like years ago, right? Because as you guys know, there's a period where I didn't write anything. And I was reading, this was when I was living in Orem with Amy Gary, good friend of mine, and Alyssa, another really great friend of mine. And at the time, I wanted to start a podcast, and I still have little notes of what I wanted it to be called. And I wanted to call it Life Abundant, because I think that life gives us so much. There's so much about life to be grateful for. All the connections that you make, the people that come into your life, the people that move out of your life, the people that are only here briefly to teach you things. Random strangers that just do little good, kind things for you. The guy that pays for your coffee in front of you, or the person that tips you $50 because they thought you were you gave them good service. There's so many amazing things, and there's so many opportunities for success and for happiness, and there's enough for everybody, which then I don't understand why it's so popular to put people down. I don't understand it. I don't understand the appeal in tearing other people apart on the internet, especially. There's enough good and success and prosperity out there for everybody, because life does give in abundance. It's overflowing with good things. And I do think that what you give, you get. What you give to people, you get back, sometimes tenfold. I have been absolutely overwhelmed by the messages that I'm getting, people's words of encouragement, their kindness, this letter from Nick the Chick, this cute little card, this hat. It's just, that was going to be my podcast, was Life Abundant. All the good things, so much good. There is so much good out there in the world. Sometimes it's hard to see it. Sometimes it's really hard to see it. But it's there. You just got to look for it. You got to look for it. And then when good things happen, you got to be grateful for those good things and appreciate them and recognize that maybe it doesn't happen all the time. Maybe these good things don't happen all the time. But they will. The more you watch for them, the more you're going to see. You guys, that's just how it works. Sorry, I kind of went on a little weird rant there at the end. But I just think that there's so much good out there. And I just want people to understand that even though you're going through this really dark time, if it is a dark time, if you're struggling with your family, if your family's not open to you being gay or queer, whatever label you choose for yourself, there are people who will be there for you until those people come around. I do think it'll happen. I know that people think that it won't. Okay? Love conquers all. Love conquers. Spread the love. Nick the Chick. I should put that in quotes. As Nick the Chick says. As Nick the Chick says. Quote, spread the love. Close quote. As Nick the Chick says, quote, spread the love. Close quote. So much love out there. So much goodness out there. You just got to find the right people. Okay? Maybe that's what we'll talk about. Oh, I had a really good session with my therapist once that was about like choosing your family. We should talk about that. Maybe for next time. I'm going to write that down. Long story short, you guys, allow yourself time to grieve. Be compassionate towards other people when you come out. Understand that they are also processing a lot of emotions, grieving what they thought was going to be your future. A little compassion does go a long way. You don't want to say things that you're going to regret. You do not want to say things that are going to be hurtful, because you'll carry that with you. You will. As always, thank you for listening. I hope you've enjoyed the podcast. I hope there was some sort of positive takeaway from it. If you have time, you have some feedback, criticism, fun story, shoot me a message on Instagram. I'm trying to take a couple mornings a week to get back to people on messages on there. So I'm doing better at looking at my message requests. So I apologize if I haven't gotten back to you yet, but I am trying to answer those. If you want a tattoo, check out the tattoo studio at some point. I don't have a lot of my stuff posted. I'm waiting to get healed pictures back from a lot of people that I've tattooed. So I'll put my tattoo Instagram in the description so that you can check that out. Anyway, thanks for listening, you guys. I really do appreciate you. I appreciate the love. I appreciate the support, the encouragement. Thank you so much. I will see you in the next episode of Education 101. Hope you guys have a fabulous day.